What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to Dylan Talks Tone. Welcome to today's podcast. We're just going to say a podcast. We do this every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope everybody's having a great day. So here's what I want. A question from you. I'm going to tell you all about the podcast, blah, blah. We'll get all that stuff done. But as I do that, I want to ask you a question. What feature on a guitar would make you not buy it? Ever. Like, if this guitar has this, I don't want it. Get in the comments and let me know. While you're doing that, obviously this is an ad-free podcast because that's how we do all of our live streams. So if you want to support the channel, you can use a super chat to ask a question, or you can just put a bunch of question marks in front of it and take your chances. Also, you could use the links in the description. Those also support the channel. They don't cost you anything, but it does support the channel a little bit. And of course, Dylan Talks Tone. You can buy pickups because that's what we do. We got a bunch of really cool stuff going on. If you're on Patreon, you get early access to the Saturday drops, and you'll see on Patreon that I posted some really cool stuff today that if you are a Patreon member, you could order right now. So, yeah, that's what it is. So I want to talk about guitar features, and I want to talk about the fact that I think most guitar players are unjustifiably picky about things that don't actually matter. And as a result of this, they're picky about the wrong thing. Okay. So we're going to talk about that today. Oh, we got a super chat. Hang on. Super chat from Dastardly Dave. Ad free is for me. Thank you, sir, for supporting the channel. I appreciate that very much. Okay, so let's see. I can't think of anything. Too heavy or insane neck dive. Okay. Don't want robotic tuners. Yeah, nobody really makes those anymore. I mean, nobody puts them on factory guitars, really. I'm sitting here judging my guitars, wishing I had a Glary, a Donner, a Firefly. That's awesome. Let's see. I feel like such a guitar freak for not having a guitar that costs less than a steak dinner. Oh, man, that's amazing. Okay, so here's the deal. The majority of guitar players, and pretty much all of you right here, pretty much all of you folks, and me, and most of us, are never going to be in a position to fully exploit the instrument that we own. Whether that is a $200 Glary something, Harley Benton, whatever, or a $15,000 Les Paul. So actually, it doesn't really matter, right? Because we're never going to be as good as the guitar. Even people that are really good, and what's really interesting about this is the better guitar players are, except for Yngwie Malmsteen, usually the more humble they are. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Yngwie's the only one that's kind of not. But that's okay, because he's really freaking good, right? So, even Eddie Van Halen would tell you, I have to practice. I'm trying to get better, right? Everybody would say, I'm trying to get better. So the majority of us are never going to use a guitar to its full potential. So honestly, there's no point in any of us being super picky about it on the technical side. So what, in my opinion, should drive our choices? Whatever the coolest thing is, whatever you want. And that might sound controversial, but the reason, not controversial, contradictory. But the reason I'm bringing this up is a lot of folks try to build their guitars or spec their guitars based on what they think a guitar should be for them. And to tell you the truth, it honestly doesn't matter 99% of the time. Now, there's going to be a few folks, there's going to be a few folks, obviously, who are studio musicians, right? They need to hit a particular thing. But most really good studio musicians don't actually have one guitar, except for Brent Mason. Most studio musicians have like lots of guitars. So it's like, okay, I'm going to play a slow country song on a Friday. That's what this Telecaster is for. Oh, it's raining outside. That's what this Telecaster is for, right? They have enough guitars to do what they need to do whenever they need to do it. And in those cases, chances are they have certain guitars for a particular thing, for one specific thing, and that's what it's for, right? I've got friends that are studio musicians in Nashville, and you'll go into their closets, and it's literally like somebody will tell me, like, this is for this kind of song. I think he left it. That is my oil for my Telecaster project from Maximum Guitar Works. I think that's what just showed up in the UPS. So, you know, there's going to be people like that, okay? And then there's going to be people that play in particular bands, typically like costume party bands, you know. That's what I call tribute bands. So you're going to have, you know, your AC/DC band. You're going to have your Led Zeppelin band. Hey, can I have that? Thank you. Because we're going to actually open that. Because it's cool. It's from Steve. Thanks. So, yeah, you know, there's many things like that, right? So if you dress up like Angus Young, chances are you're going to need a black SG. Makes sense, right? If you dress up like your costume band is Van Halen, get a different job because you're probably not fulfilling that role very well. But either way, you know, you've got some nice tights and some leather pants, and you've got one of those guitars with tape on it. So those things are for sure, right? Like most of the time, very specific. For the rest of us, hey, I think that's cool, is enough. Oh, I like that thing. It's enough. And then if you don't like something, you just change it, right? And what's interesting is it doesn't matter whether it's a $200 guitar or a $12,000 guitar. This has nothing to do with money. This has nothing to do with how good a guitar is. This has to do with our ability to get the potential out of the guitar, our being good. When I was in the power sports industry, my business partner and I would talk about the 90-10-5 rule all the time. You've heard me talk about this on the channel before if you followed it at all. The 90-10-5 rule is 90% of the money in the hobby is spent by 10% of the people in the hobby to get the last 5% of the performance out of whatever they're upgrading. That's literally what's happening with all of this money, right? So 90% of the money spent by 10% of the people to get the last 5% of the performance out of a thing. The thing is that they don't need to. So don't allow somebody on the internet, including me, anybody, to push your choices, to allow, you know, like you think you need the next biggest thing? Not really. You just need new pickups. I'm kidding. But allow the joy of the thing and the fun that you're having with it to push it. If you want a different sound, get a different sound. If you want try a different neck, get a different neck. So, okay, so let's get into a couple of these things. One of the things I was thinking of was, there's a couple things I was thinking of in specific. One is fretboard material. Who cares if it has Indian laurel on it? Doesn't matter. You know what? In about 10 years, every guitar is going to have something that's not rosewood. Just so you might as well get used to it. What else? I can't play that fretboard profile. I can't play that. I need whatever because my hands, right? Have you ever seen them little Asian kids on the YouTubes? You can play any guitar you want if you set your mind to it. Let's see. I've always thought Bigsby's look a bit odd. Perhaps one day I might get used to their appearance. Okay, so you're going to appearance, which this is exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like the DTT P90s offer way more than I'll ever deliver. 100% I agree. They're way better than me too. I could play the singer in any of those cover bands, but maybe not Boston. That's funny. What about Bad Company? Can you do a Paul Rogers? That's a tough one too. Paul Rogers, Journey, and Boston. To me, I think I would never attempt to be around a cover band like that. It'd be really hard to cover Journey, obviously. and it would be really hard to cover Paul Rogers. That's another one I think about. Never say never, but I shy away from a Bigsby. So a lot of people, oh, maybe that was the same person. Bigsby, I didn't realize I was a studio musician. I have a guitar for everything. See, there you go. Boom. You just learned something about yourself. Love it. I can't eat steak for, let's see. Somebody said Hip Shot. Those are like the best tuners ever. Freddie Mercury. That makes sense. Let's see. That's why my next guitar will have a rosewood fretboard, because soon it won't be available. You know, dude, you're not wrong. So my first really good acoustic guitar, I mean, I've had guitars, but I bought, actually, it was my first brand new guitar. I bought it in 2016. I've had a lot of guitars over the years, but none of them were brand new until 2016. And I bought that Breedlove Premier Dreadnought. And the reason I bought that guitar is because at that time I could not afford a D28, and I really wanted a D28 and I couldn't afford it. So I bought the Breedlove because I wanted a rosewood back and sides spruce top guitar with an ebony fretboard. And that was going to be like my last one, because that was the entire time. That was the time period when all the CITES stuff was going on. And it was getting more and more difficult at that point. They've changed things, so it's not as difficult now. But at that time, it was very hard to move rosewood around. And so other people were trying all kinds of stuff. Bamboo, walnut. That's when Wenge got really popular. And 6-string stuff. Obviously, bass has been doing it a long time. And all these we were using on our builds, on the Dylan Custom Guitars builds, we were using reclaimed, I think it was reclaimed walnut, actually. We were using for our fretboards because it was just too hard. Like if we were selling guitars, I was selling guitars, shipping them all over the world, and we couldn't move rosewood around. So it was way easier to go without it. So I agree. If you're in a position to get a guitar with the materials that you want right now, do it. I think that's a great idea. What I love about everybody here is that they're buying stuff that they want just to want it. And I think that's really cool. And I guess that's the whole point of this conversation. I feel like, it seems like most of y'all who are in the comments today are you folks who have really, over time, obviously, you know where I'm coming from on this, that you just kind of embrace whatever guitar you have in front of you and try to play it, right? Graham says that necks matter a wee bit to me because, especially on acoustics, as I play long covers, gigs, and if the neck is too wide and thin, it gets uncomfortable after a while. The J45 is ideal. Yeah, so you're making definitely you're definitely making like a practical decision for that gig, and I think that's cool. It's not as much the feel of the rosewood as it is many of the rosewood look-alike woods just look dry and dull. So I think they're getting better at that. You look at the Indian laurel stuff from, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It was really orange and really kind of gross looking. But I think they're getting better at that stuff. I think they're finding different stuff. And honestly, I think it's not actually. I think what's happening is, just like with mahogany, for example, I think a lot of these guitar companies are just being like, hey, send me brown. I need brown. That's what's happening. Because honestly, it doesn't really matter, right? Aesthetically, put the guitar together the way you want. That's going to excite you, right? What are you excited about? Do you want a brown fretboard or do you want a white one? Or a tan one? Or a like wavy maple one? Typically less stable. Do you want the only neck material I think that really gives you a real advantage in any way is roasted stuff, because once you caramelize everything in the neck, it is stiffer. It makes them a little bit more brittle and a little brittle's the wrong word. you got to be careful. Make sure that you drill it out right to put your tuners in and that kind of stuff, because you don't want to strip out screws, because all of the softwoods have, basically caramelized all the moisture in that wood and everything that's in it. They can become a little bit more splintery, if that makes sense. So you want to make sure you do it correctly. I will play anything. Chocolate and Cheese, which is also a great name, by the way. I like that. I think going back to some of these good studio musicians who have lots of guitars, they usually have lots of everything. Usually they have this many fat necks and this many skinny necks and this many whatever. And what they realize is that you apply the neck differently. It doesn't mean that you can't play it. It just means that you apply the guitar differently. You use this for this and you use this for this. Now, if you're only in a position to buy one guitar, which many people are, so that means that you just try to get as close as you can, obviously. But there again, just because a guitar has a particular spec doesn't mean you can't play it. So, for example, if you see a guitar with a 7 1/4 fretboard radius and you are a beginner guitar player, doesn't matter. If you are a 9 1/2, see a 9 1/2 fretboard radius, doesn't matter. 10, 12, doesn't matter. Just buy the guitar. If it feels comfortable when you pick it up and it's not huge or tiny because you have big hands or really little hands, a medium C or a slim C with any fretboard radius and pretty much any huge, like mega huge jumbo frets can be kind of, but most people don't. Most guitars don't put those on there from the factory. Usually that's a kind of a more specific thing. So when you're going into the Guitar Center, wherever you're buying a guitar, any of the guitars on the wall will come in a fretboard radius or a fretboard material or a fret size that you can play as a relatively all the way to a heavily intermediate, higher intermediate and professional guitar player. All of us could pretty much play anything in the store. When it comes to electric guitars, you're talking about electric guitars. Now, when we're custom building something that's different, right? You might want to give it a little more thought. Then you start to realize, okay, I want some specific things, right? What made me think about this a little bit the other day is because we made that video about the Batfish, right? And I got a lot of messages, actually, more than I anticipated. Usually people make fun of me about that guitar. Usually they, oh, that thing's dumb, or, oh, it's just a Fano copy or whatever, because it's not, but whatever, okay? A lot of people make fun of me about that guitar. Not this time. The majority of people are like, oh, I really want one of those. But can I get it in a... If you say purple, yes. If you say 7 1/4 inch fretboard radius, no. Because we don't have those necks. Like that's... I could, I guess, but you have to be willing to pay for it. So... Or I wish I would buy this guitar if it had. Okay, I get that. But if the model is this, then you just don't buy the guitar. Now, if you're having something custom made, that's different. If you're having something custom made and you're wanting to make specific choices, then it's time to think about that stuff. However, if somebody who really knows what they're talking about comes to you and says, I wouldn't choose that, and here's why. Well, but I can't play X or Y. Yeah, but the problem... So this happens all the time to me. People will call and say, I want to put this pickup and this pickup and this pickup and this guitar because I'm looking for this sound. I'm like, it's not going to work. That's not what I would do. Well, I don't like low output pickups or whatever they say. I don't like X or Y. And I'm like, okay, I understand that you say that based on what you've read on the internet and that you've come to that conclusion over a period of time. I don't say this to them, but this is what I'm thinking. I realize that you have come to this conclusion over a period of time because you have been told this by the guitar gods and all of the graduates of YouTube University. I do get that. However, because this, and this, and this, and this, and this is where I usually actually pick up the conversation. I would recommend this pickup, and this pickup with this capacitor and this pot, because what you're doing isn't going to get you where you want to go. If you're talking to somebody that you really can trust about that, and by really can trust, I don't mean, some forum on the internet or some Facebook group. I mean somebody that you really have developed a relationship with and trust about that stuff. Whether it's a friend of yours. Now, it might be just the guy who has all the nice stuff, okay? But is he good? So you see what I'm saying? You got to find the person who can be honest with you about that. And who is not trying to get you to just buy something better. So if you came to me with a Harley Benton and you said, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, I would not tell you it's not possible with that guitar. You can't do that. I would say, okay, this is what you would need to be willing to invest. If that is worth it to you, this is what I would do. And here's what I would do. And I would give you a plan. And I would not dissuade you from doing it. And I would not try to sell you a bunch of fancy things that don't actually do the thing. When we just spend too much time in Facebook groups and too much time in online forums, that's what happens. You just get like caught up in this whole thing. So find somebody that you trust to help you make the technical decisions that you don't think you know how to make, right? That's really, you don't want to get caught up in the whole thing. But don't lose the fun in it either. I mean, sometimes it's just fun. So, lately, I have been buying stuff. Man, I've been wrecking a lot of stuff lately. I got this new laser. And so I don't know if you noticed, but if you've heard at all, if you follow this channel, you're probably sick of me talking about it. But I got a new laser. I don't know if you heard that or not. But I've been burning all kinds of stuff. So I've been like wasting pickup covers and tele control plates and oh my gosh, all kinds of things. And but the thing is, I'm having a lot of fun. The creativity side of it's super cool, and I know that I have to invest this in it, right? Like I know that I have to invest this in the learning, and I'm enjoying the learning. So if you are approaching a guitar that way, if you've got a parts caster or whatever, then by all means do whatever you want. Obviously, do whatever you want anytime. But like if you're trying to figure things out and you're trying to learn and you have decided that you're going to invest this time and this money into it with questionable results and then be willing to get the results you want, that's cool too. I dig that a lot. I graduated from YouTube University. That's funny. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just going through some of these comments. Sorry about the dead air. Guitars are like ice cream to me. So many flavors, and I want to try them all, with the exception of the pointy guitars. That's funny. I don't really care about pointy guitars either. I would really like to have a Gibson Flying V for sure, but I probably wouldn't play it that much. That's why I don't own one. I love this. Dylan, I'm setting up my Les Paul to factory spec, but I'm a bit unsure about how to go about the tailpiece. I'm not top wrapping. Is it okay to raise it higher to get the angle right? It's absolutely okay. So here's what you do. What I would typically do with that is set your neck relief first on a Les Paul. I would set your neck relief first every time and make sure that your nut height and your string height at the 12th fret are correct. Okay? So that means you're going to be moving your bridge up and down. Once you get your 12th string height correct, look at the back of the bridge and see if the strings are clearing the back of the bridge. Depending on the neck set depending on the thickness of the fretboard. I don't know what model of guitar we're talking about, what model of Les Paul or stop bar tailpiece we're talking about. Sometimes that'll touch and sometimes it won't. Just raise up that tailpiece just enough to where it doesn't touch the back of the bridge. That's all you need. It will not kill your sustain. The people that tell you on that on the internet are dumb. It's fine. Just raise it up just a little bit. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but the threads in the screw that holds the tailpiece to the guitar are the same threads that are holding the tailpiece to the guitar when they're this much sticking out. You're not more solid when it's still threads in a bolt. Okay? So, anyway, that's a huge pet peeve of mine that people go on about. I heard that shipping matters with tone. Yeah, if it shows up crappy and broken. Took me 6 times to get my first good neck carve. I find the fretboard, the whole thing about fretboard feel a bit silly. Your fingers don't even touch the fretboard on most guitars. So that depends on a couple of things. That depends on string spacing. I get where you're coming from. I do touch the fretboard. To me, the corners of it matter though, more. So if the fretboard is nicely rolled and the fret ends are nicely done, I kind of don't care. However, I don't like a slick, smooth fretboard, like a Telecaster with a maple neck on it. Usually I'm an ebony or a rosewood guy. 2 reasons. 1, I like how it looks. And 2, when you tap test them, I'm just kidding, not really. I do touch the fretboard because I wrap my thumb. And when you wrap your thumb, you end up touching the fretboard a lot. There's a lot of contact around the top because I do hook my thumb. And I know that's like not perfect guitar, posture or whatever. But I'm not a flamenco guitarist. So, so getting back to the things, to me, there's really kind of 3 things that really matter that affect how much you touch the fretboard. One is your string spacing. So if you've got wider string spacing, like on a Gibson, than a Fender, because a Fender has a tighter nut, or a Taylor versus a Martin, for example, in the acoustic side. The other thing is your fret size. So like on a Gibson SG Junior, the string spacing is, or a Gibson Junior in general, the string spacing is wider than it is on a Fender. So the strings are further apart at the nut. And the frets are smaller. Then, depending on your finger and your hand size. So those are the 3 things to me. The fret size, the string spacing, and the size of your hands. People with smaller hands are going to have smaller diameter fingers and they're going to touch the fretboard more. If you have big sausage fingers, chances are you're going to play a lot of bar chords like this. And you're not going to touch the fretboard as much. So that's kind of the thing. So it kind of depends, right? It kind of depends on the person. And I personally like a natural fretboard. I don't like a finished one. I speaking of guitars, I will never buy. I would never buy a Rickenbacker. I can't stand them. First, I think they're ugly. The only person that looks cool playing a Rickenbacker in the entire world, not the Beatles, Tom Petty. Tom Petty can play a Rickenbacker. Nobody else should play a Rickenbacker. But he did. So there you go. AI is trying to take over music. I love the imperfections. It makes it more. I don't agree with that. Whatever. We still need humans to create stuff. Leslie and I talk about this quite a bit because she works for a software company and they're talking about AI deployment all the time and this and that. And it's not anywhere where we need to worry about it yet. Maybe someday, but Peter Buck a close second. Nah, whatever. Okay, sure. All that Dylan is saying is why I need a couple of days practice to adjust to my different guitars. You know, oh, okay. And Lemmy and Cliff Burton. Okay, those are basses. So basses, I don't care. Like the bass player can play whatever he wants. That's fine. I don't care. But if you're in my band, you can't play one of those basses with the huge wide neck that looks like a piano. That's too dumb. Actually, isn't the guy from ZZ Top, what is his name? Eli something or something, whatever his name is. Doesn't he play one of those? If I was Billy Gibbons, I'd be like, dude, no. But whatever. Billy Gibbons probably too blind to see from there. Billy Gibbons is like, how do you play with strings that are like that thick? I can only play eighths or whatever he plays. Okay, getting back to all that Dylan is saying is why I need a couple of days practice to adjust to my different guitars. This is why I agree. And I honestly encourage people to buy as many different types as possible. What happens a lot of times is we sort of get siloed into a style of guitar. I'm a Fender guy. I'm a Gibson guy. You know, it's Mac versus PC, Android versus Apple, right? It just kind of happens over time because of the culture that we're in, because of depending on where we hang out and what Facebook groups and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it's happening less now, but and then we also do that within the guitar too, right? So my last Strat was a 9.5-inch fretboard radius, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and get another one because I like that one. I would encourage you, if you have a Strat with a 9.5-inch fretboard radius, whatever it is, doesn't matter, buy a Gibson, or something that, you know, if you don't want to spend the money on a Gibson, get an Epiphone. Doesn't matter. Get something with a bound neck and man, that new Les Paul Studio for $15.99. Holy smokes, you need to buy one of those. Link in the description. I mean, dude, that guitar, that is the move right now. If you do not have a Gibson and like a real one, that is the move. It's shiny nitrocellulose. It's got something that looks like binding, even though it's not really. It's like a finish, but it's got a bound neck. It's got trapezoids. It's got real pickups. It's got all the stuff. $15.99. Everybody needs to buy one of those. That's really cool. That's what I'm saying though. If you have a Jazzmaster, Jaguar, Mustang, Strat, Telly, and I'm a Fender guy, go buy one of those Les Paul Studios and use my link in the description. That's what you do. Just to get as many styles of guitars so that you can do that. You know, when people say, not to bring this stuff back into it, but, you know, I can't hit the broadside of a barn with a Glock. That's because you suck at trigger control. End of story. End of story. I can't play a 7 1/4 fretboard radius. That's because you haven't spent enough time doing it. Now, does that mean you're going to use it for everything? No, because you're some kind of shredder guy who likes Yngwie Malmsteen and needs to go all the time. Well, you're not going to do that on a 7 1/4 radius, but that doesn't mean you can't play it, right? You can use it for stuff that is, you know, more melodic and, you know, has more soul. And then when you don't want to play with soul and you just want to go all the time, then you go back to your 16-inch radius and your Floyd Rose. Like, it doesn't mean you can't play the other one. It just means that you up to this point, you've been too picky to play the other one. And that's where this whole conversation kind of comes back around, right? You've been too picky up to this point. I'm saying stop being that picky and go get one and use it for something. Use it for something. Like, doesn't matter what. And maybe you don't play it that often. I've got a couple guitars that I don't play that often, but I'm glad I have them. And I really enjoy them when I play them. They're not my normal thing, but I really am glad that I have them because it, you know, like for me, it's flatter radiuses, 16-inch radiuses, 14-inch radiuses, stuff like that. I'm less used to that kind of stuff. So, you know, It's not my favorite. However, I'm glad I have it because it tells me again what the difference is. Now I really can understand that. Because you also don't want to be the guy who's like, hey, do you want to try out my guitar? What fretboard radius is that? Oh, I can't do that. I'm not that good. Saying you can't play something is so silly. I agree. I hear it all the time, though. I hear it all the time. I really think most people couldn't care less about radius or string spacing, fretboard material, etc. It's more like it was a cool color and a cool shape, or can I afford it? I hope that's how it is. I do. I really do. The only thing that I might be a little pickier about, but somebody brought it up earlier, it's a matter of adjustment. I do not own any Taylor guitars for two reasons. One, I don't like how they sound plugged in. And at the time, the last time, well, not my Martin, but before when I was buying my Breedlove, I played every Taylor. I literally went in a store and spent like 5 hours and played every Taylor. I didn't buy one because I don't like the way they plugged in. They sound plugged in, and I was gigging a lot with an acoustic at that time. The other reason I went away from them is because I have played Martins since I was a kid, and the string spacing on a Taylor is bigger. And I felt at that time that it was too much of an adjustment for me to make because I was playing live a lot and I was going to mess up a lot. So I ended up going with a guitar with a Martin spaced nut. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't play a Taylor. I've been thinking about buying one because I don't have one. And I think I would play it. But I think it would just take some, like somebody said before, you just have to spend a few days with it and get to know it. If you do that, you will very soon not be able to tell the difference between anything. They will all be playable. I know that's the way it is for me with a lot of the stuff that I do. All the guitars that I own, I could play them equally terrible. All of the pistols that I own, well, there's a couple that I can shoot way better with because they're better. But none of them are like, oh, I can't hit the broadside of a barn with this one, right? And I can transition between them. I could go to the range and I can pick up one, sit down the other, pick up one, sit down the other, and still hit. Now, that I'm proud of, and I can do that. Am I that good of a guitar player? No. But I do know that I can sit down and play any of my guitars and enjoy it and not be like, oh, this one's, you know what I mean? So that's the thing. And the more you do it, the less it matters. The more you play, the less it's going to matter. The more experience you get, the less it's going to matter. And the thing is the less experience you have, the less it matters because you don't know the difference. So none of it actually matters. See what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah. There you go. You don't know about bigger string spacing until you play a classic nylon. Yeah, you know, I played one when I was a kid. We had my first acoustic guitar was a Stella steel string acoustic, 3/4 size when I was like 4. And we had that hanging on the wall in the living room. And we had I can't remember what it was. It was from Spain. I do not remember the model or the brand, but we had a nylon, as my dad would call it, because he's old, a gut string guitar. And we had that hanging on there on the wall too. And I just remember that when I was a kid, you know, the neck felt like that wide. But he taught me to play bar chords on that. And he taught me to not finger pick, but to pattern pick, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like he taught me all those things on that guitar because there was more room to do it. I didn't like it, but it was a good tool at the time. What's fun is picking one up because you don't play it, so you might sell it and then don't put it down for weeks. Dude, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the last 3 or 4 times I've went to sell a guitar, I've taken them down. Like I'm like, I'm going to sell that. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, no, I'm not going to sell that. I really like it. I got some stuff over here I'm trying to sell too. And I came in here the other day and I'm like, I'm not going to sell that. I'm going to keep that. Because, yeah, you just end up regretting it. You just end up regretting it. Dylan, can I add a couple of pots to my order? Also, can you get me a push-pull and the bill additional or something like that? Yeah, we could sort that out. Send me a message on the website if you would, or shoot me an email. Also, since you're here, Jose, I picked up the Cerakote covers today. They look fantastic. And so tomorrow and Thursday, we will be building. I'm going to try my best to get the Cerakote stuff out by the end of the week. Because I picked those covers up today and they look fantastic. He did a great job. He called me this morning. He's like, man, I'm so sorry. It took an extra week and I really apologize. But he's a really nice guy. We're going to do some work together in the future. Yeah, that's super cool. The amount of work it takes to sell a guitar is more work than it is letting it sit on the shelf and not playing it. Dude, you know that's true. It's funny. It's kind of easy. It's a little easier for me, but I cheat, right? I have all of you. So if I say, hey, I'm selling a guitar, somebody's probably going to want it just because of the sheer number of people that find out about it in a short amount of time. But man, I get it. And honestly, like I hate reverb. I don't use reverb. I will not. We have a reverb store for Dylan Talks Tone. I took all stuff off. I'm like, I am not doing. They take too much money. That it's too much of a pain. If somebody like whiffs one little bad thing about you, the whole thing, I'm not into it. Not into it. Let's open this box real quick. I know for listeners, this might be a little sensory deprivation here, but I'm going to open this box. I'm going to show you what's in here. Now, those of you who follow the channel for a long time, you'll know that I am a believer in the people that use oil finishes for everything just do that because they don't know how to paint. It's kind of true. However, in the last couple of years, have been hanging out with Steve from Maximum Guitar Works in Colorado. And I do not have an affiliate thing or anything like that with him. I paid full price for this. In fact, I didn't even tell him I was ordering it. The Mad Scientist Hard Oil and Wax Finish. This is a neck finish. Well, I guess you could use it on anything, but I'm going to use it on the neck on the Stratocaster. I have used this on a couple of builds. Actually, the Batfish that I had in that video yesterday has this finish on the neck, and I absolutely love it. Sorry for all the crinkling noises. Here, hang on. There you go. Dead air is probably better than that. Okay, so this stuff is a one-step hard oil and wax finish. And this is not an ad for them or anything. Like I said, I'm not getting paid for this. This just came in the mail, and I really like this stuff. It's it's a wax and oil mixed together. And so when you rub it on the fret on the neck of the guitar and then you let it dry, maybe a couple of times, it gives you a nice hard finish that feels really good. And then what you can do is take, after you've applied it and it dries for a little bit, then you can take a gray Scotch-Brite and Scotch-Brite the back of the guitar down, back of the neck down, and it's like baby smooth. Super cool. It works really, really well. I want to say this was $40 for this, but I mean, how many necks can you do with this whole huge bottle? You're going to go like this in a paper towel a couple of times and it's going to do the whole neck. So, yeah, this is really neat, man. This stuff works really good. I would recommend doing all of your, fretboard leveling and crowning and all that stuff ahead of time, because tape won't stick to your neck, after you've used this very well. So, yeah. People keep telling me I need to change the name of the Batfish, and I'm like, no. Let's see. That is good stuff from Maximum Guitar Works. It really is. It works really well. Awesome. You guys, this has been fun. I, of course, have to go. You pretty much described True Oil. Okay, maybe, but I know for sure that he makes this from scratch in-house, and it's not True Oil, and it is not the same. It doesn't feel the same when you use it. It doesn't smell the same either. It works really good. How's it measure against carnauba wax? Well, I mean, wax will work, but it doesn't have the oil in it. The mixture of the two is the thing. Yeah, man. Cool. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We might have a video. We might not till Thursday. But other than that, thanks for hanging out, everybody. We will see you in the next one.